team of legal experts assisting Ukrainian prosecutors say that it is highly likely that Ukraine's Kakhovka dam was blown up by explosives planted by Russians. The international human rights law firm Global Rights Compliance issued a preliminary report on the blast and says it may constitute a war crime. The Kakhovka dam's under Russian control and was breached on the night of the 6th of June, causing extensive flooding of settlements and agricultural land downriver and cutting water supplies to a large part of the population. The destruction of water reserves essential for irrigation is also expected to impact farming. The group described the destruction of the dam as part of a calculated plan to starve, terrorize and force the capitulation of Ukraine, regardless of the cost. Catriona Murdoch is from Global Rights Compliance. She joins us from the UK. Welcome to DW. Vladimir Putin says the West blew up the Kakhovka dam. Who do you think blew it up?
So the witness statements of explosions being heard, I think the seismic readings that we've analysed, the imagery analysis, the demolition experts that we've relied on, have all fairly conclusively led us to rule out that this was a Ukrainian attack on its own dam. Nobody has, at least as far as we've seen, alleged any aerial attack of this sort. I think based on what we've seen on social media reporting, again, as I said, on open source intelligence, and including the site visit that we had last weekend, the most likely cause, in our view, was that of pre-emplaced explosives placed by the Russian military themselves within the dam itself. And really, the fact that the Russians at the time had free access and were in occupation of that dam makes this much more plausible that it was them rather than the Ukrainian side.
And so, if you're correct, then this is all about premeditation. This means that somebody planned this, planted them, and waited for their moment.
The information that we've seen, and it's very early into this investigation, certainly would seem to suggest that. There were earlier reports in October of last year that Russia may have already been rigging the dam at that point with explosives. So there seems to be a suggestion, certainly, that this is something that was deliberately planned and carried out.
And were you given access to the dam itself?
Absolutely, yes. So the team we understand the first investigative team, Global Rights Compliance, and our mobile justice team was down there with the International Criminal Court's delegation and the Office of the Prosecution.
Right. And so does blowing up the dam constitute a war crime?
Absolutely, it could. I mean, it's the short answer is yes. A court, of course, would need to make that determination. That's not something that we would be able to adjudicate upon. But again, I think what we've seen so far, that this really has the hallmarks of a range of different potential war crimes, or indeed crimes against humanity. The war crime that we have most closely focused on has been the war crime of starvation, or indeed the war crime of excessive death, injury or damage. And that really is the nexus to this widespread and long-term severe damage to the natural environment that we're already seeing. So our initial focus is typically to run this through an international humanitarian law assessment and to understand which of the fundamental principles of IHL have been violated, and then move to a consideration of which war crimes this might engage.
Right. And how does your work tie in with that of the International Criminal Court investigators? Are you supplying them with your evidence and then them taking it forward?
Yeah, so we're independent, of course, to the International Criminal Court's investigation. They have a separate mandate. We are supporting as part of the Atrocity Crimes Advisory Group. We have a number of different mobile justice teams, and this particular team that's focusing on the dam investigation is part of the Starvation Mobile Justice Team. And so any information that we find that we're satisfied has gone through our analysis and our investigative methodology, then we would share that with the International Criminal Court. We plan to do so at the end of this programme, which would be and file what's known as an Article 15 communication, sorry. But along the way, we'll be sharing that information with a range of different stakeholders, most principally the Office of the Prosecution in Ukraine, and then the UN Commission of Inquiry on Ukraine and European prosecuting authorities as well.
And so where does the money come from? Who's funding your work?
So, as I said, this is a part of a platform, the Atrocity Crimes Advisory Group, and it's a multi-donor consortium. The starvation team is funded by the Netherlands, who've been a long supporter of conflict and hunger and promoting the analysis, advocacy and accountability for that particular crime. But the Atrocity Crimes Group and the Mobile Justice Teams, it's a US, UK, EU consortium.
Right. So having dealt with the Kakhovka Dam, do you now go and look for something else to investigate? How does that work?
Yeah, so this investigation on attacks on critical infrastructure and starvation is an 18-month investigation, and we have 3 specific pillars that we're looking at. So pattern attacks, of which this would fall within. We're also going to be looking and are looking at Mariupol and a number of different incidents that occurred within that siege. Particularly with a view on humanitarian access violations and attacks on critical infrastructure within Mariupol. And then the third pillar is attacks on agriculture and grain theft. So we will continue furthering our investigations specifically on the dam itself, but alongside a number of different concurrent investigations.
Okay, that's very clear, and we thank you for your time. Wish you well with your efforts. Catriona Murdoch from Global Rights Compliance, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.